Hey everyone, it's Richard Metalfan here, bringing you guys an old school album review. And today we're going to be looking into this album's 25th anniversary, which happened a couple days ago, but I was so busy I'd forgotten it was. But it's from in my opinion, one of the few progressive metal bands I like. And as you can see below the title, today we're going to be looking into Awake by Dream Theater. This is the band's third album, released in October of 1994. For But yeah, let's just dive into this now, of course, Dream Theater, one of the best progressive metal bands of all time, and forming in 1985, and this is like after their first album, which completely went unnoticed. And this is, of course, is the follow up to pretty much their most well known album, Images and Words, which kind of like broke them through big with their song Pull Me Under, and there was like a lot of pressure to like record a follow up. And comparing to Images and Words in Awake, this album is kind of like a different beast to compare to what Images and Words are in terms of like the musicianship and the lyrics and everything. It's a bit more, has a lot more of a darker tone compared to Images and Words, which I think is kind of makes it very unique. And it still has sort of like their, also has a lot more of a heavier stuff, which will kind of be like their second heaviest, which would be later on be Train of Thought, which came out in 2003. But yeah, it almost has like almost kind of like very thrashy stuff, like on some of the riffs. But yeah, vocally, James Libree's vocals just sound very dreamy and stuff. Pretty much, like the '90s era of Dream Theater is pretty much where James Libree really shines on this, and John Petrucci's guitar riffing is just great. Like, he's a god; he can do no wrong. And the bass playing on this album is actually really audible compared to previous albums. John Young pretty much stepped it up. Like, it has some very grooving bass lines. And the keyboards, this is actually the last album with original keyboard player Kevin Moore. Since he left the band after this album was recorded, which was kind of a bummer because, I mean, nothing against like Jordan Rudess, but I kind of like Kevin, sort of like gives it like more of an fear vibe to it. And drumming wise, like Mike Portnoy can do no wrong. He has like one of the best, in my opinion, my favorite drummer of all time. He's a beast. And yet this album is just 11 songs to dive through, and it only runs about 75 minutes. But yeah, without further ado, let's dive into this album track by track. Now, starting things off is the song 6 O'Clock, which it has a very energetic opener, has a very amazing drum fill from Mike Portnoy. And just in the recording, talking sort of like excerpts on her play over like fast drum rolls, following like a bass fill before the verse finally starts. It's one of the most shortest tracks on the albums. It's only like 5.5 minutes long. And this chorus of this song features 3 sections. The first time through, only the first is played, and the second, then the first and second, and so on. The first part is kind of like a little bit more upbeat than the other sections, while the second is more of a melodic treat, but the third is basically being a continuation of the second. And one of my favorites on the CD, and it's an excellent way to start off this album. And then Caught in a Web is up next, and much like the last song, it's similar in length, only like 3 seconds shorter, and is mainly energetic and upbeat. And the intro features some interesting keyboard effects over a choppy riff, and the verse mid-tempo is not as quite as forceful as the chorus, which has a more awesome keyboarding. Probably one of the more keyboard-oriented songs, actually. Next on the album is called Innocence Faded, which is more radio-friendly than the first 2 songs, and the intro consists of a heartfelt intro, which is played on guitar and just some simple drumming, and then it quiets down for the verses before the catchy mainstream chorus. One of the weaker songs on the album, but it has some great soloing from John Petrucci and Kevin Moore, especially like near the end of the song. And then the next 3 tracks kind of like form a 20 minute long suite called A Mind Besides Itself, which could be translated as sort of like paranoia a little bit. But it's broken down into 3 songs, which the song first one is being Erotomania, which is part 1 is an instrumental. It's very complex, even to like Dream Theater standards, and it's basically all soloing, lots of like wankery, yes, but is effective and actually one of the best tracks on the CD. Now, Voices is part 2, and it's one of the album's 2 epics. It's just under 10 minutes, and each member shines through in this track, as many time changes and instrumental characters are explored throughout its length. And the chorus is just incredibly epic, and the solo sections are probably the best on the album. And it's probably one of my favorite songs on the CD, and it shows some classic Dream Theater right here. And then part 3 is the song The Silent Man, which is a step down from like the other two. It's the shortest song on the CD at like 3 minutes 47 seconds, and it's all acoustic, and it actually follows the standard song structure. It's a great song, but it doesn't like stand much after the epic. Yeah. Yeah, and then the two heaviest songs on the album are next, and it can stand up to like the heaviness of like their later album Train of Thought. And The Mirror is written about Mike Portnoy and about his drug problems, which would kind of like would lead him into the AA suite that started on 6 Degrees of Inner Turbulence and has many lyrical reference, and is consistently heaviest this track. And it's actually one of the slower songs on the album. It's probably the heaviest. It starts with some extremely choppy and aggressive guitar work and then bashing drums to follow. Almost towards the end of the song, the theme to the closing song on the CD is played before a heavy outro, and the outro blends easily into the intro to the next song, which is Lie, but which I think is a pretty good song. It's very catchy and another one of the CD's highlights. The opening riff is a neck breaker and an easy one to love. And for the verse, the riff remains the same, only becoming picked and much more quieter as James LaBrie whispers, sings. It's fucking awesome. Like, and the chorus is pretty basic, but great nonetheless, as James almost screams, "Don't tell me what you wanted, me. Don't tell me you thought of me." And the song ends with another one of the album's most top instrumental sections. And then we go into Lifting Shadows Off a Dream, which is kind of a nice break from its aggressive predecessors. It's very kind of like slow, dark, and daunting. And John Mayall contributes with the lyrics on this song, and it gets open the song with a very slow bass intro. Oh, and the keyboards on this song is very phenomenal. It's pretty simple, but an incredible amount of atmosphere is added. Only a few notes are played during the intro many parts, yet it adds a very atmosphere that makes it feel as he's floating in the space. And the chorus is very emotional as James is liberates to maintain his vocals throughout the song. And I'd say it's one of Dream Theater's like top ballads, though it's definitely not one of these highlights. It's despite sort of like the memorable keyboards. And then the album's second epic, which is Scarred, is up next. It is the longest song on the album, running 11 minutes long. It opens with some very jazzy cymbals and some I can't even speak today, sorry. Complementary guitar chords and bass notes. And this seems like almost the most experimental song, and even more time changes are used here than on the song Voices. And the verse is quiet with an almost jazzy vibe, but changes in All Hells Break Loose with some sinister keyboards thanks to Kevin. And the tempo changes and the style changed yet again, and this sort of slower chorus, which isn't quite as good as it could have been, but nonetheless very good. And the instrumental section is almost as good as it was on Voices, but just not as memorable. Overall, one of the best songs here. And then finally, the album closes with the song Space Divest, which opens with some beautiful piano which dominates the whole track. As on every other Dream Theater album, a piano ballad is present, and this proves to be a very strong one. It's incredibly atmospheric and mysterious sounding throughout, and features very little guitar work. However, not much is needed. A single chord is struck at the beginning of one of the verses midway through the song, and is surprisingly incredibly powerful. The song doesn't change too much up until the last 2 minutes, which it finally becomes a little bit more upbeat, though not much at all. And the song pretty much ends the same way it began. Now overall, Awake by Dream Theater is one of Dream Theater's most darkest albums, and a little bit more heavier compared to Images and Words, but would not be their heaviest until probably Train of Thought. So if I have to give this album a score, I'm going to give this album probably a solid 9 out of 10. So yep, that's my review of Awake by Dream Theater, guys. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about it, and I'll see you all in the next video. And as always, keep it metal.